Hello, my darlings, and welcome to a new episode of After Dark Fairy Tales. I have a new episode for you, but this episode is part of a series. And if you've already guessed what that series is, you're right. It's part of Daniel Hayes' Hothead series. Daniel shared Hothead Unleashed with me on Reedsy. I read it, and now I get to share it with you all. He wanted me to narrate Hothead 4, and I'm glad he did. And if any of you are unfamiliar with Daniel's Hothead series, I pasted links to Hothead Part 1, 2, and 3 in the description box below. Please check out those before listening to this one, or you can listen however you want. But Hothead 4, which Daniel shared with me, is just as crazy as the last 3, and I'm glad I get to share with you all tonight. This one he called Hothead Unleashed. So, I'm going to share with you all, and to all my new subscribers, I want to say welcome to After Dark Fairy Tales, and I hope you all will enjoy the stories. All of you that have been here, thank you for the likes and comments. I know it seems like I say the same thing every single video, but I can't thank you guys enough, and I want to say that I know some of you could be doing anything else, but instead you're here on this channel listening to my narration and to these stories. And I know that some of you might enjoy the stories a little more than my narration. Not the best narrator out there, but I'm hoping I can bring these stories to life for you all and help you make it more visual, like you're watching a movie rather than listening to a story. So, and I'm glad I also get to present and showcase the talent from other writers, new up-and-coming writers. So, enough talking your ear off. Are you ready to get to Daniel's Hothead Unleashed? Well, here we go. Hothead Unleashed by Daniel Hayes. In the aftermath of a devastating battle, Asriel, the Angel of Death, lost his life in Gemstone City. The Shadow ended Asriel's quest to kill the 7 princes of Hell by decapitating him with his own sword. He claimed Asriel's sword and left his body to rot in West Central Park. Asriel's death sent shockwaves throughout the afterlife. Beneath the radiant glow of moonlight, a lone figure wearing a white tunic gathers Asriel's remains and ascends to heaven. In a white solitary room, Sabriel, the Angel of Miracles, places his hands on Asriel's lifeless body. He knows that while an angel can be killed, their life force remains. Sabriel's hands start to tremble as he focuses all his energy into Asriel's body. A bright golden light fills the room like the rising sun, and Asriel is reborn. Sabriel speaks in a deep throbbing voice. "Rise, Prince Asriel." Asriel slowly rises to his feet and takes a moment to collect himself. He places his hands around his neck, making sure his head is fully attached. Feeling satisfied, he pulls a white cowl over his head. "Stand aside, Sabriel. I have unfinished business with the Shadow." Sabriel started to laugh. "You know the rules, Asriel. Once I bring someone back from the dead, they are trapped in this realm forever." Asriel squeezed his fists together and shouted, "I must have my vengeance." Sabriel smiled wearily. "I might be able to make an exception in your case. Give me your sword, and I will allow you to leave this realm." Asriel shouted, "The Shadow stole it from me." He pointed at Sabriel and continued, "If you let me have my vengeance, I will kill him and give you the sword." Sabriel folded his hands together and thought to himself, "You already failed once. You must bring me the sword. If you fail again, I won't be able to bring you back. you will burn in the pits of hell for eternity. Asriel reached over and grabbed Sabriel. I will not fail this time. Sabriel pushed him away. Don't touch me again, or I'll make sure you never leave. Asriel took a step back and replied, I will bring you the sword. I accept your terms. Do we still have a deal? Sabriel took a deep breath. The deal is done. Bring me the sword, or you will burn forever. Meanwhile, in Gemstone City, in an abandoned warehouse, a thunderous pounding could be heard throughout South Main Street. Frank Gillespie could feel his arm burning as he hammered the last nail into his latest victim. He stood back, folded his arms, and smiled at his handiwork. Hanging on the wall were 20 empty corpses with holes cut into their chest. Their hearts were missing. He chuckled to himself as he walked over to the nearby table. Each heart was placed into a separate cooler packed with ice. This will be the biggest payday yet. The black market will pay me a fortune, he said to himself. Frank looked around the room and noticed that the lights were starting to dim. He shivered as a cold chill raced through his scrawny spine. He noticed goosebumps forming on his pale white arms. He raised his trembling hands to his jet black hair and wiped the sweat from his wrinkled forehead. He heard a haunting voice directly behind him. Did you say payday, boy? Frank quickly turned around and came face to face with the shadow. Who are you? The shadow parted his black trench coat and pulled out the shadow sword. He held the sword above his head and chuckled to himself as black flames ignited around the blade. I'm a simple debt collector, and I've come to collect, he said, pointing the sword at Frank. Frank started to tremble as he felt a warm yellow liquid flow down his right leg. He opened his eyes wider as he heard a loud growling noise just off to his left side. He slowly turned his head and saw a mighty hellhound hulking in the darkness. Have you met Hothead? Asked the shadow. Don't worry. This won't hurt much. Hothead pounced on Frank, ripping him limb from limb. Blood quickly filled the concrete floor as Hothead's razor-sharp fangs tore into Frank's flesh. His screams echoed through the empty corridors of the warehouse. As Hothead ripped Frank's head off, the hanging cage lights exploded in unison. Sparks floated down like fireflies soaring through the night air. Suddenly, a bright light filled the room, and Asriel appeared out of nowhere. He threw his iron chain around the shadow before he had time to react. With another flash of light, they both vanished. The shadow was gone. In the surrounding darkness, Frank's head was still in the grips of Hothead's mouth. As he bit down with a large crunch, Frank's eyeballs shot out like glass marbles. Hothead searched in vain for his master, but did not find him. He whimpered and ran to the roof. With the bright moon shining in the night sky, Hothead howled, shattering all nearby windows. On East Market Street, Darby O'Gill was pushing his mother Anne in her wheelchair. Darby was in his mid-50s and Anne was in her 80s. They loved their evening walks in the warm spring air. The markets were closed, and the O'Gills loved the peaceful isolation. As they passed the Western Steer, Darby felt something brush up against his back legs. He turned around to see a massive dog with glowing red eyes and wisps of smoke emanating from its mangy black fur. He could smell sulfur in the air, which burned his eyes. Hey, Ma, would you look at this big, ugly fucking dog? She twisted her wheelchair around and said, You leave that dog alone. You're always out here messing around with strange animals. Darby turned around to face Anne. Oh, come on. I bet he'd make a great guard dog. Forget about it. I have a hard enough time feeding your fat ass. You honestly think I can afford to feed a big dog like that? She said. Darby closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Please, Ma, let me take him home. I bet he'll clean up real nice. Anne shouted at him in a stern voice. Yeah, right. I bet the next thing you'll tell me is that you will actually get a job and keep it this time. Darby squeezed his lips together and replied, Interrupting Darby, Anne said, That's what I thought. If you keep messing around with these strange animals, one of these days you're going to get burnt. Darby started crying. Turning around to face the dog, he said, You wouldn't burn me, would you, boy? Hothead opened his mouth wide and spewed forth a massive inferno of flames. Darby stood frozen in time as his flesh melted away from his body. Anne started screaming, and Hothead closed his mouth, stopping the onslaught. There was nothing left of Darby except for a charred black skeleton that fell to the pavement. As his ashes started to blow away, Hothead cocked his head and looked at Anne. He whimpered, and Anne was speechless. She stared at him with glassy eyes and trembled in her wheelchair. As Hothead walked past her, she kept her eyes fixed on him until he was out of view. Oh my God, I thought he was going to kill me too, she said to herself. Just then, Hothead swatted at Anne's head with his mighty paw, sending it soaring through the air. Hothead was ready to sink his teeth into her lifeless body, but a noise in the wind caught his attention. Curious, he followed the sound to a back alleyway just behind the gemstone apartment complex. Moans of ecstasy were coming from one of the first floor windows. Hothead turned his head and listened. He ripped the screen away and snuck in, prowling his way through the lavish apartment. As he approached the bedroom door, he discovered the source of the moans, a young couple mating in the darkness. Oh, my candy cane, you're grooving tonight, the man said. Shut up. You're only paid up for 30 minutes, she replied. Hothead started panting loudly as he stared at the white bedroom door. A large amount of phlegm oozed down from his mouth, staining the sumptuous carpet. He turned his head and let out a small whimper. Hearing the noise, the man sat up in bed and said, Candy cane? I've never heard you whimper like that. Are you finally enjoying yourself? Enjoying myself? I don't think that's possible. You know I fake it, right? She said in a stern voice. If you keep panting like that, I'll have to charge you extra. Just then, Hothead crashed through the bedroom door. He jumped high into the air and landed on top of the couple. He bit off the woman's head and slashed at the man's face. The silk white sheets turned a red-crimson color as their blood flowed like a waterfall down a mountainside. A few blocks away, on Mason Street, Gary Larson was locking up his gun shop. Big Bubba Wetzel was waiting for him because he was hoping to trade in his new Benelli 20-gauge shotgun for a few $100s. Sorry, buddy, we're closed for the night, Gary said. Big Bubba hung his head low and said, Oh, come on, man. I just need a few minutes to trade this baby in. Gary looked at the shotgun and smiled. Hey, Is that the new Benelli? You're damn right it is, Bubba replied. Gary nodded his head and unlocked the door. Well, come on in, my fine sir. Those guns are a big seller. I just can't seem to keep them in stock. Big Bubba slapped his big round belly and said, Hot damn, it's my lucky day. They both turned to enter the store and caught a whiff of sulfur in the air. They looked around and saw Hothead staring at them from the parking lot. Step by step, he slowly approached them. Big Bubba immediately pointed the shotgun at Hothead and said, Hold it right there, you dumb dog. This thing is loaded, and I'm not afraid to blow your guts to kingdom come. Gary turned his attention to Bubba and said, You can't bring a loaded gun into my store. Hothead looked them over and burped a fiery flame that scorched the pavement. Gary and Bubba looked at each other with eyes wide open. Hothead took another step towards them and licked his lips. Gary and Bubba spoke in unison. Nice puppy. That's a nice puppy. Hothead let loose an explosive howl that broke the store windows behind Gary and Bubba. Bubba was so startled that he twitched and shot Gary's head off. Blood spurted from Gary's neck, and his dead body fell to the pavement with a loud thud. Bubba looked back at Hothead and said, Look what you made me do, you stupid mutt. Hothead ran towards Bubba like a runaway freight train and tackled him to the ground. Bubba desperately tried to fire at Hothead, but he was too late. Hothead ripped open his stomach and ate his intestines like a big bowl of pasta. Further down the road, on Gamble Street, a young man dressed in a gray business suit was filling up his new Chevy Spark at the local Exxon. He happened to turn his head and saw a big, rabid dog running towards him. His hand started to tremble, and he removed the gas nozzle from his car. The gas flowed onto the pavement surrounding the gas pumps. The dog was getting closer, and the young man closed his eyes, expecting to be attacked. He stood there for a moment, and nothing happened. He opened his eyes and watched the dog run around his car. When Hothead felt the gas beneath his paws, he farted a fiery flame. The gas ignited and quickly raced towards the gas pumps, causing them to explode in a big fireball. Boom! Meanwhile, Asriel and the Shadow emerge at Sabriel's home in heaven. The Shadow is wrapped tightly in Asriel's thick black iron chain. Asriel swings the chain towards a white wall, and the Shadow crashes through it, leaving a thick cloud of white dust floating in the air. What have you done? Sabriel shouts. You cannot bring that evil abomination to this holy place. Asriel turns his attention away from the Shadow and says, I brought him here so that when I kill him, the sword can be transferred to you. Sabriel screams, The wrath of God will descend upon us. You have doomed us both. The white smoke starts to clear in the purified air, and the Shadow is standing before them. The iron chain is still wrapped around his slender body. He focuses all his power and breaks the chains in one swift motion. The Shadow steps through the broken wall and says, It's not the wrath of God that you need to be afraid of, boys. Sabriel pushes Asriel towards the Shadow. You better kill him now. Asriel stumbles forward and is caught off guard. He doesn't notice the Shadow pulling out his sword. The black flames ignite, and the Shadow lunges forward, cutting in an upward motion. The Shadow sword cuts through Asriel from groin to head, splitting him in half. His bloody corpse falls to the floor with a splatter. Sabriel tries to run away, but the Shadow quickly grabs him and says, You're coming with me, boy. The shadow hooks his arm around Sabriel's neck, and they disappear. A few moments later, they reappear at West Central Park in Gemstone City. The shadow forcefully throws Sabriel to the ground. He quickly crawls back towards the shadow and grabs his trench coat, crying out for forgiveness. Please let me go. I did nothing wrong. The shadow starts laughing and kicks him back to the ground. The angel of miracles, groveling at my feet. Sabriel stands up and shouts, You cannot kill me. I am an angel from heaven. God will never allow this to happen. The shadow raises his finger to his puckered lips. Shh. Thanks to your special miracles, terrorists all around the world have obtained weapons of mass destruction. The shadow folds his arms and continues. Crime lords, big and small, have received special miracles in the forms of lawyers who get them off free and clear. I could go on, but I want you to meet my special friend. The shadow places 2 fingers in his mouth and whistles loud and clear into the night air. Sabriel covers his ears and squeezes his eyes together. Are you trying to make me deaf? He asks. The shadow starts to laugh. Oh no, I just want you to meet Hothead. Sabriel hears a rustling in the bushes behind him. He turns to investigate and sees Hothead flying towards him. As Hothead lands on Sabriel, the sheer weight of his body crushes his bones. Hothead tears him limb from limb, savoring every bite. He saves his head for last. He snatches Sabriel's head in his mighty maw and tosses it towards the shadow. In one swift motion, he pulls out the shadow sword and slices Sabriel's head in 2 halves. Hothead looks at the shadow and whimpers. The shadow walks over and pats him on the head. Good boy, Hothead. Good boy. The shadow turns to walk away and says, Come on, Hothead. We still have a lot of work to do. They fade away into the warm night air. Deep in the bowels of hell, Asriel and Sabriel are tied to iron posts planted firmly in the fiery ground. The eternal flames of hell ignite just below their feet and slowly engulf their entire bodies. They will burn forever in the realm of damnation. Their screams are heard throughout the entire kingdom of hell and will echo in the kingdom of heaven. A warning to all renegade angels that you don't mess with the shadow and the beast. Well, did y'all like that one? I hope y'all did. I told you it's just as crazy as part 1, 2, and 3. But I'm glad that Daniel shared Hothead Unleashed, his 4th installment. And I'm glad that I got a chance to share it with you all. I hope y'all liked it. I liked it. Like I said, it kind of reminds me of Hellboy. But I'll let you guys be the judge. And I'd like to know your opinion about it. And I want to give all credit to Daniel Hayes for sharing his masterful work and sharing the extension of his series with me. And I'm glad I was able to showcase it on my channel. So, check out Daniel's other work as well, because I posted the link to his Reedsy page in the description box so you can check out his other stories. I've narrated a few of Daniel's stories, and they all have their crazy atmosphere, and his Hothead series is really high octane, as I would like to say, or nitro fueled. But once again, all credit to Daniel, and I'll be back next time with another After Dark fairy tale for you all, and I hope you all enjoyed this one. So until next time, good night, my darlings.